First Thomas Jefferson, then John Adams, and now James Madison. You know, when they need me to rid the Virginia from the bloody Indians, or when they want me to get rid of the British from the colonies, I'm their man. But when it comes to upholding their end of the bargain, those pretty boys up at the Capitol let me down time and time again. I'm Lieutenant Colonel George Mathews, 2 times governor of Georgia, fierce Indian fighter, Revolutionary War hero, and shrewd businessman. You know, they say that I'm illiterate because I spell Congress with a K. Well, maybe I can't read or write, but isn't that what a secretary's for? Others will tell you that I love to talk about myself. Well, who wouldn't with all the adventures I've had? You know, when I was just a boy, growing up on the Virginia frontier, I learned how to live in the forest, ride like the wind, and shoot whatever came my way. My parents, Ann Archer and John Mathews, they didn't come here all the way from Ireland just to be killed by a bunch of savages. When I was only 22, a family not far from our home was murdered. We heard shots and thought that it was a shooting match, so we rode over to join in, only to find them slaughtered. Suddenly, those wild Indians came jumping out of their hiding places, firing directly at us. A musket ball grazed my skull, cutting off my queue. We got together a band of the toughest fighters in Staunton, Virginia, and we chased down those savages, killed 9 of them on the spot. Then later, at the Battle of Point Pleasant, we drove the rest of them back across the Ohio. By the time the Revolutionary War had started in 1775, General Washington had heard tales of my bravery and appointed me 2nd Lieutenant Colonel of the 9th Virginia Regiment. 2 years later, I was the hero of the Battle of Brandywine. But then at the Battle of Germantown, we had captured 100 of those British, but thick smoke from the musket fire and a dense fog set in, blocking our view. You know, the rest of those Minutemen, they retreated, leaving us to fight alone. Cowards. One of those bloody Brits drove a bayonet right through my hand and was about to finish me off when an officer stopped him. He said he wanted a colonel for a prize. I suffered much cruelty at the hands of my captors. Thomas Jefferson was Virginia governor then, and he refused my plea to exchange me for a British prisoner. Imagine that. Me, a hero of the Revolution, scorned by the likes of Thomas Jefferson. Well, when I was finally released, I joined General Greene's army in the South, and it was there that I found my true home. It was in Georgia, on the banks of the Broad River at Goose Pond. I had never seen such rich soil, beautiful virgin timber, and clear, cold creeks. In 1783, I bought a big piece of that land in what is now Oglethorpe County. You know, before the war, my brother and I operated trading outposts. I made a lot of money in that trade. Did I mention what a shrewd businessman I am? You know, I may not be able to read, but I don't forget a thing, and I can count money. In 1787, I was elected governor of the state of Georgia. It was right at the time when Indian lands to the west were just opening up. Everyone that had anything to do with the Revolution thought they were entitled to free pieces of big land. Well, a bill comes through the Georgia General Assembly that was called the Yazoo Land Act. I vetoed it. I did not think it was right to sell public lands for nearly nothing to a few companies made up of our own legislators. Well, then another bill comes through, and that one was to provide funds to protect from the Indians. Now, I was in favor of that bill, but those scoundrels, they tricked me by adding back that Yazoo bill. Well, they knew I wouldn't be able to read all that fine print. With my signature now on the Yazoo fraud bill, all hell broke loose. I was forced to leave Georgia for the Mississippi Territory, never to return to my beloved Goose Pond again. But then a few years later, President John Adams nominates me for the governorship of the Mississippi Territory. That is, until the Yazoo nonsense comes back up and he withdraws my name. Well, I wouldn't stand for that. I quickly saddled up my horse and rode straight from Mississippi to Philadelphia, where Congress was in session. When I got there, I threatened to kill one of his servants if he did not grant me an audience. But you know, President Adams listened, and he never again questioned my integrity. Then, in 1810, President James Madison secretly asked me to help out in East Florida. You know, the United States wanted Spanish Florida. Therefore, so-called American patriots, under the direction of a Colonel John McIntosh, were seizing lands that belonged to the Spanish. I was asked to go to East Florida, help incite a revolt, so the United States would have a reason to annex East Florida. I accomplished that in no time. So I say, well, why not West Florida? And so I'm now heading to West Florida to do the same when I get this letter. It seems the Spanish got in an uproar, complained to Washington. Madison backs down and sends a letter stating that I did not work within the constituted authorities. What the hell does that mean? How dare he pretend I didn't work under his direct supervision? You know, folks, I may not be the most educated of men, but it's men like me that made this country, not those dandies up in Washington. Thank you.